I made this dress torn jacket recently for a wedding. I didn't want to wear ashwabi, so I had to look through my fabric stash and find out what I had in order to figure out what to make. This is what it looks like without the pants. I made it intentionally with the pants. But yeah, this is what it looks like without the pants. Very, very short. I should add buttons. I have not added buttons. That is why I'm putting it like that. So bring out your basic bodice pattern and let us get this party started. Okay, first off, I already traced out my basic bodice pattern. I didn't add that curve at the hem and I increased the dot. And what I'm going to do first is that I am going to mark half of my shoulder slope. By the way, this is my front bodice that I'm working on, and I'm going to connect that middle point to the dots. Okay, then afterwards I am going to mark the length of my dress, which is like adding 6.5 inch. I had less than 3 yards of fabric, so I had to like make do with what I had. I didn't want it too long, if not the fabric won't be enough. So now I'm just marking my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 2.75 at the end line. Okay, and I am going to connect that to the side seam of the pattern. So this is the main pattern for our dress and the old one is no longer needed. I'm going to extend the middle line down to the hem, and what I'm going to do next is that I am going to mark the button area. So this is double breasted, so I am adding 4 inches from the center front. So 4 inches because I am on the smaller side. So from the hem down to the waistline, that is where I am adding the extension. Okay, so if you're on the bigger side, you could mark 5 inches off. So I'll just show you guys again since it was not on camera. For some reason it was out of the camera. And now I'm going to connect my neckline to my waistline. That 4 inches we added to where the waistline is, I am going to connect to the neckline. So guys, from this point I'll just repeating everything I did for the oversized blazer jacket that I made. Remember the oversized blazer jacket, guys. If not, I am going to leave it linked down in the description box. So now I'm going to add 4 inches, which is the length of the back collar that I want in the front, and 1 inches downwards like so. And I am going to straighten out those lines. So after doing that, guys, the next thing for me to do now is that I am going to mark my lapel. So from the bottom line, I am going to mark 3.5. That is going to be the width of my lapel. The lapel is the bottom collar, and I am going to use my curved ruler to connect. But I really feel like the way maybe I placed the curve upside down or so, but it was still looking nice. Okay, so I am going to connect the first line where the first line meets that points that were connected from the neckline to the waistline. I am going to connect the lapel and I am going to mark the middle point. So now I am going to mark the width of the back collar that I want in the front, and I marked 2.5 because what I used for the oversized blazer jacket was way too long. That's why I decided to shorten it, and I'm going to connect to the middle of that slanted line that we marked like so. I hope you understand. So from the neckline, from the neck point, I am going to go in by 1/2 inch. And this is on the fitted side. This is fitted on like the oversized blazer jacket where I came out, but this time I'm going to be going in. You have to watch that video so that you understand what I mean. I'm just connecting everything I did here. I'm just repeating the steps that I did for the oversized blazer jacket, and I hope that the video is simple enough. I hope that it is self-explanatory enough. Okay, so the connection I'm doing here is really not compulsory. After I watched the video, I just felt like there was no need because I didn't even use it at the end of the day. So now I'm going to bring my basic bodice back pattern, and I'm going to measure the neckline. So from the shoulder slope, from the shoulder point upwards on that line that we marked, I am going to mark the length of the back measurements that I had, and I'm going to go inwards again by 1/2 inch on that point that we marked. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to connect like so. I hope you guys can see where I am connecting from. I am going to connect up to that point where we marked. As you can see, this is not a straight line. I free-handed it because I was more comfortable with the free hand. And then I'm going to mark the width of my back collar, and that is 3 inches. So that is the width of my back collar, and I'm going to connect that point to the bottom point where we have the back collar at the front. I am going to connect like so with my curved ruler. That is done. Now I am going to go down to the M, and from the side seam I am going to go up by 1 inch. So we don't have a straight M, at least we want it to be curved a little. You can see what I showed you guys at the beginning of the video. So I'm going to use my curved ruler and I am going to connect like so. So after that, guys, that is all. That is the new M line that we are working with. That's why I didn't trace the curved M line from the basic bodice pattern. Okay, so guys, for my pattern I didn't add seam allowance, but you can add seam allowance before cutting. You just want to make sure that you trace your collar out, then you add your seam allowance. So this is my front bodice pattern for the double-breasted blazer jacket. I'm just marking my button placement, which I didn't use at the end of the day. But yeah, this is the front. So let us move over to the back. Now guys, for the back, I already traced out my basic back bodice pattern, and like I did to the front, I marked the middle of my shoulder slope, and I am going to connect to the dots, which is the middle of this, the bodice, right? So then I am going to bring my front pattern, the pattern we just drafted. I am going to place it so that it lines up with the side seam of the back bodice. I am going to place it so that it lines up on the bust, the waist, the shoulder. I'm going to place object on top, and I'm going to trace the side seam all the way to the M. I'm doing this because I want it to be the same. I want to have the same thing I have on the front, on the back too. That is why I have decided to trace the front bodice to the back bodice. I hope you understand. So now I'm going to take the front bodice away, and I'm going to connect the center back to the M line. Now guys, after doing that, I am going to go ahead and connect the dots, the middle points, down to the M. And yeah, so for the middle point of the center front, the center back rather, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. And I'm going to go in on either side at 3 inches. Yeah, I think that was what I did, 3 inches. I'm doing this because, okay, that's 3.5. Yeah, I used 3.5. I'm doing this because I really don't want it to be fitted. You know, if you're drafting your basic bodice pattern, you want to draft the zipper panel where the zipper will be, you have to take that part in a little bit so that you don't have the bulging. So that is what I did here because I didn't want it to bulge. And I'm just using my curved ruler to connect, and I'm going to cut my back pattern out. I'll say basic bodice pattern. So yeah, our pattern pieces, this is my collar piece, this is my center back and my side back. As you can see, I already cut out the middle portion and I already removed the dots. So this is my center front and my side front. I did the same, cut out in the middle, and I removed the dots. Now immediately I noticed that my fabric pieces was not going to be enough. I decided to take 1/2 inch at the side back and the side front. At the armhole portion, I removed 1/2 inch from the armhole portion since I noticed that the fabric would not be enough in order for me to do the sleeves. So for my fabric pieces, for my collar, I need 2 pieces. I cut it out on the fold, as you can see. 2 pieces, okay? Make sure they are cut out on the fold, and I added my seam allowance of 1/2 inch all around. Now guys, for my center front, I added 1/2 inch all around, except for the M, I added 1.5 inch. I was supposed to add 2 inches, but because I know that the fabric will not be enough, I decided to manage it. And this is my side front, so the same thing, 1/2 inch all around, except for the M where I added 1.5. This is the center back, the same process, 1/2 inch all around except for the M. This is the side back, 1/2 inch all around except for the M where we have 1.5. Now this is my lining pieces. For all my lining pieces, I added 1/2 inch everywhere, including the M. Okay, so for all your lining pieces, 1/2 inch. And guys, for my center front, I used the main fabric for my lining pieces because we have a lapel there and we want the same fabric on the exterior for the lining. And guys, for my interfacing for the center front, this is the lining piece. I added fusible fleece, aka wadding, because I didn't have clothes stay, or what do you call it, soft woven interfacing. I used wadding, and I feel like it really gave it another look, and it worked really, really well. Okay, so this is the soft woven interfacing, aka clothes stay, that I already added to one piece of the collar. So you need to add it to just one piece of the collar. So now I am going to start sewing, and what I'm going to do is that I am going to place the center front and the side front right sides touching each other on the middle seam. So I'm going to place the side front and the center front right sides touching each other. I am going to pin and I am going to sew. Now repeat the same to the other side, and also repeat the same to the lining panel. So anything you do to the main panel, make sure you repeat the same process to the lining panel, okay? So this is the other part of my front panel. I am going to sew, and I am going to repeat the same. Make sure you're ironing, okay? Iron, guys. So this is the center front and my side front. I am going to place them the same way, right sides touching each other. Did I just say center front and side front? Center back and side back, guys. I am going to place them right sides touching each other, and I am going to sew. Repeat the same to the other side, because we had four pieces of the back panel, okay? So I am going to open the back panel like so, and I am going to connect them in the middle. So both center backs, I am going to place them right sides touching, and I am going to sew with my seam allowance of 1/2 inch. This is my lining panel for the back. As you can see, I have ironed my seam allowance open. This is ready and good to go. This is the lining panel for my front piece. I have ironed and it is ready and good to go. So this right here again is the main panel, the front panel, the main panel. I have ironed my seam allowance. Guys, if you do not have a tailor's arm, I am going to leave a video linked in the comment section or in the description box below, so you can make your own tailor's arm and you can use them to iron. This is the back panel for the main piece, iron and ready to go. One thing about blazer is that you have to iron, okay? Keep ironing. All right, so this is my back panel, right sides facing me. I am going to place the front panel right sides touching the right side of the back panel. I am going to connect them on the shoulder seam and side seam on both areas, and you have to repeat the same to the lining panel, okay? So connect on the shoulder and on the side seam. So this is my lining panel, ready and good to go. I made my buttonhole off camera because I wanted the button to be inside. I didn't want the buttons to be outside, okay? So do whatever it is that you want. This is the main panel, connected on the side seam and also on the shoulder seam. So let's start working on the collar. So I'm going to take my collar piece, right sides touching each other. If you're working with a material like this, that the back is difficult to differentiate from the front, you have to be careful not to place the wrong side on the right side, okay, or mark from the onset. So now I'm going to sew from that point upwards all through and to the other point. I hope I was able to do justice to the explanation, but yeah, I'm just going to sew from the point where the lapel meets the back collar, and I am going to stop sewing on that corner. I am going to trim my corners. I am going to snip my curve. I am going to reduce my seam allowance, and I am going to turn to the right side. Guys, make sure you are ironing. I didn't show the ironing part, but I was really ironing. So I'm going to shift the seam allowance to the part where we don't have interfacing, and I am going to understitch. So guys, after understitching, I am going to place my collar panel wrong size touching. By this time, you should already have ironed. I didn't iron because I just want to quickly do what I wanted to do here. So I'm going to place it wrong size together, and I am going to snip my middle. Right, so as you can see, I'm using my pointy tool to point out my collar so it has a sharp corner. And yeah, this is me just trying to and press so that I can snip my curve, or snip my middle rather. I am slowly drifting away, guys. Stay with me. Okay guys, middle is marked. So I'm going to go back to my panel, the front panel pattern, the front pattern. Hi, good. So the point where the back collar meets the lapel, I am going to note that on both the collar and on the main panel. Okay, so that when we are doing the next step, it is easier for us. Okay, so the point where the lapel meets the back collar, I am going to mark on both. As you can see, this is what I have done. All I had to do was align them at the points where I wanted. I didn't bother about the rest. I just wanted to align them on the points where I wanted. I did add seam allowance to this panel, remember, to the pattern. So I just want to quickly explain this. I did it off camera because I have like little issues with it. So this right here, the parts that you want to face outwards when you fold your collar, so that's the part that is going to be up. Then this part is the wrong side. This is where I understitch. This is where is on the main panel. Okay, so wrong side of my collar to the main panel. Then remember the marks that we did. I notched my middle, the middle of my collar. Then I connected it to the middle seam of the back panel, and I spread it out to where I add that mark right here, and the corner of the collar to where we have that mark. This church beside us is really giving me a problem. I don't know. They've been doing service since yesterday night. They did service this morning. They're still doing another service. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm just going to take it to my sewing machine, and I am going to sew with my seam allowance of half an inch. So this is it sewn. Collar is sewn to the main panel. I just have to check to see if I don't have any pleating or any creases anywhere to make sure it is clean, because this part is risky. So I have like small ones and it is not that bad, but yeah, it is good. So what I am going to do next is that I am going to bring my lining panel. So my table is not big enough, but I just had to manage. So I'm going to bring my lining panel, and I am going to make sure that the middle seam is connected to all the seams. In fact, not just the middle seam, all the seams are connected. And I'm going to place it in such a way that the collar panel is sandwiched in between the lining panel and the main panel. I am going to spread everything out to make sure that I don't have any creases or any fold or pleats. And I am going to sew. I'm just going to turn like so, and I am going to sew from one point to the other, and I'm going to follow the previous seam that we used to hold the collar to the main panel all the way to the end. So this is it, done and ready to go. So what I am going to do next now is that I am going to go down to the hem. Okay, first off, I'll just check in to see for pleats and creases, because like I said earlier, this part can really be tricky. So I had pleats and all of that, but it wasn't so bad to the point where I had to start seam ripping. It is fine. And I already connected my buttons. I added my buttons, but I had to remove it at the end of the day because it was wrong. But I am going to that later on. So like I said earlier, I am going to go down to the hem, and I am going to place them right size touching. So the hem of the lining and the hem of the main panel right size touching. I am going to make sure that all the seams are on the same part and they align. Okay, so I'm going to pin, and I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew from one end all the way to the other. So this is it, sewn and ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to place the panel so that the lining panel is facing me. I'm going to place the fabric. Is the fabric? So I'm going to place so that the lining panel is facing me, and I'm going to pull the lining panel upwards so that the main panel comes up by half an inch. Do you understand? Please, if you do not understand, let me know in the comment section. Okay, I am going to spread out my seam allowance, and I am going to pin. I am going to pin all the way to the top, and I am going to sew from the hem all the way to the top. Okay, So again, place your panel on the table, lining side facing you. Pull the lining so that the main panel shows by half an inch. Open up your seam allowance, pin all the way to the top and sew all the way to the top. So what I'm showing you guys here is that I am I have trimmed my seam allowance, and I am also notching the corners both at the hem and at the lapel side. So now guys, armhole, I turned everything out from the armhole, and here guys, I really messed it up. I already sewn, cut off my seam allowance, trimmed everything, and I had to take out all the seams because I messed it up. So now I'm going to use an already made bias, because at this point I was too weak to start making bias from scratch. Now guys, what I'm going to do is that I am going to baste the lining panel to the main panel so that it stops the fabric from stretching and also holds the lining panel to the main panel. Then I am going to bring my bias and I am going to fold the end. I'm going to fold one end and I'm going to place it on the side seam where the armhole of both the main panel and the back panel and the front panel meets. I am going to place it like so, and I am going to pin. So I'm going to do that all the way to the top, all around rather, and I am going to sew following that line that we already have on the bias. Now guys, it is done. So what I am going to do now is that I am going to snip my curve at the armhole. So after snipping my curve, I am going to finger press or iron. I am going to press the bias to the lining and I am going to understitch. Now after doing my understitching, I am going to fold my bias to the lining, so the wrong side of the bias is on the lining, and I am going to take my needle and thread and I'm going to do an invisible stitch, because when I looked at it I really didn't want a visible stitch on the main panel. So that's why I decided to use my needle and thread to do the invisible finishing. All this while, I have not asked you guys to like and subscribe. So please, like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, to support the channel and appease the YouTube gods. Thank you. So after unstitching, this is what we have. I am glad I was able to correct my mistake, because I really freaked out at the end when I messed up at the armhole. But yeah, this is what it looks like. I remember guys, when I was telling you at the hem to pull the lining panel, this is what it gives you. Iron crepes ready to go. You can see the hem, the way it looks. Yeah, this is what it gives you. And again, this is the final result. Everybody was really against me wearing this for the wedding, because they all wanted me to wear ashwebi and dress matured. But guys, if I don't wear it now, where do I want to wear it to? Please let me wear what I have. Thank you.